Hello, welcome to Hammer Down Woodworking. My name is Tracy Maxfield, and today I'm going to show you 5 simple jigs that I use a lot, and they are simple to make, and I hope that you find them useful too. They are not anything that I have come up with. They have been around for a long time, and maybe you will be able to use these too if you aren't using them already. Alright, the first jig I'm going to show you, I saw this on Woodwork Web, hosted by Colin Cannett, and all it is pieces of plywood, and I have done mine just a little bit different than his, not a lot, but just a little, but I have numbered these pieces so they go back with the correct piece, just in case my sawing lines are just a little bit different from one piece to the other, because these are made for framing or even doing picture frames, and it gives you a flat square surface, and I've made them out of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, and they're 1.5 inches thick. And the reason why I did that is so when I get my frame in there, I can put a tie down strap around the outside and pull everything together. But that's really not even needed. The way these work is, all this is a square piece of plywood that you will drill a hole in it, cut the corners off at a 45, and then you will saw at a 45 up to this hole from 2 different directions, which gives you a perfect 90. And what that does is it gives you room for glue without gluing your jig to your frame. And the way these frames work is, if you are making a picture frame, they'll go in one in each corner, just like that, and they will pull your 45-degree miter cut up flush. You can take your clamp, put your clamp in that corner, and you got a flat surface to clamp against, which gives you even amount of pressure on all 4 sides of that corner. And you can clamp that up just as tight as you need, and you can do the same thing in all the other corners. This frame is not big enough. You have to make them smaller for a frame this size, but this is just for illustration purposes. See, and you'd clamp your other one the same way. Once you get all 4 clamps on your piece, then you can pull clamps from these outside edges from here to here and put direct pressure this way. You can clamp from here over to this one, and that will give you direct pressure this way. You can clamp that any way that you want and pull your mitered corners together. And this, as you can see, this leaves your corner for your squeeze out without it gluing your jig to your piece on both sides by cutting that hole. It doesn't take a whole lot, just a little. But anyway, that's jig number 1. Jig number 2 is clamping cawls for panels and the sort. And all this is a piece of 2x4 that is jointed and planed down to where it's consistently square. And then take a Forstner bit or a paddle bit and drill a hole in the middle of that board, any size that you want. Really doesn't matter. You want to get it big enough that you're not going to get glue squeezed out on this piece, because you will glue this to your project. But anyway, drill your hole in the center of it, and then run that piece across your table saw and cut it in half. You've got 2 flat surfaces that are identical, so it's not going to be pulling your piece sideways. And when you clamp up your panel, you put that hole over the seam of the boards, and you can clamp from top to bottom on the edge of your boards, and that will hold your panels directly flat. They won't want to raise up or down on you and be all set. That will cause a lot of misery. And I also saw these on Woodwork Web, Colin Connect. I use them on small panels. I do not use these on tabletops. You will have your ends together using them on tabletops, but every other end can still get away from the previous one. So a larger scale of this, maybe a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 foot 2x4 with multiple holes drilled in it where your seams are going to be, and then rip that in half and use that on your tabletop panel would work for that. And I do that. I don't keep those around because they are so easy made, and they just get in the way, and I get rid of them. But this works great for panels that has 1 or 2 seams. Give those a try. They work great. Alright, the third jig that I want to show you is so simple, it's not even real, but I use these all the time when I make a tabletop or a large panel. If you've ever made a large panel of any type or even a small one, and when you go to put your finish on it, you put your polyurethane or whatever you're putting your top coat on that, you know, if you lay it down on something or you put it on a piece of matting, you're going to have places that that panel is going to want to stick to that if it's laying flat down on it. These are painter's pyramids, and you can situate, just cut you out however you need, how many you need. Just a triangle is all it is. That way you just have a small surface that is touching your finished piece on the bottom, and you lay your top on it, and you can situate these however you want till you get your piece balanced. And then you can paint, put shellac, varnish, stain, poly, whatever you need to do, and it holds it up and gives it air on the bottom and air on the top for better drying. And if you put anything on it such as super glaze or something like that, it gives it a lift to where that will run off over the edge and not pile up. Those work great, and all they are is just, and you can make just as many as you need. If you're making a tabletop, you may want 8 or 10 of these. If it's a small panel such as this example, or maybe bigger than this example, then 4 or maybe 6, depending upon the size. But make as many as you want, and all that is just a triangle cut out. It's 45-degree angle, and those work great. That's number 3. Alright, number 4 is a doweling jig, and all this is 2 pieces of board with an edge left on both sides, and 2 steel sleeves, 1/2-inch steel sleeves in this. And then you can get different size steel sleeves. If you want a 1/4-inch dowel, you want 1/2-inch, 3/8, whatever, just get the size sleeve that you need, drill that size hole in your board, and then slide that sleeve in there. And I have used finishing nails on each side to hold tension against those to keep them from spinning or pushing out when I put the drill bit through there. And the way that works is, when you're joining up a tabletop, you take your boards, and of course this board here is not, let me grab one that's big enough. You take your tabletop, take one piece, and if you line this up with the end of this board, and then drill your hole through here, drill you another hole through here, and then just mark it on this end, and then slide that mark up to where it's even here, then you can drill another hole. On your next piece, let's just say that this is the opposing piece. You've got this one here with your holes already drilled in it, and then this piece is a totally different board line that up, drill your hole, mark, slide that mark up to the top, and then drill this hole, and then you can put glue dowels into those joints and they will line up perfectly to where you can glue and joint those two boards together. And with those dowels run across this way, that board is never going to buckle or bow. This is a lot better system than using biscuits, and I use this a lot. My farmhouse tables that I use, depending upon the size, the last one that I built, I put 10 dowels in between each board, and I promise you that tabletop is never going anywhere. And this is the doweling jig that I used, and it is just a homemade jig. And the only thing it cost you to build this is probably, I think those are somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1, $1.50, something like that a piece for these bushings. And you can use scrap lumber as long as it's straight, and that will join up your boards. Okay, and the last one, jig number 5. This is called a tapering jig, and I have cut mine 7 inches wide, and I've got it marked on here 7 inches. That way I always know. And all this is a strip of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, with a dado cut in it for T-track. You don't have to do this. You can actually, if you want to, just drill blocks down to it. And the way that this works is if I have a table leg and I want to taper it, let's put it in there. I've measured it. Just for example, this is my table leg. I put it in here. I've measured it. I've marked it on this end where I want my taper to start. I've marked it down here where I want my taper to end. And that is what I'm going to be sawing off. I clamp that down, and this side goes against my table saw fence, and when I set it on 7 inches and I run my blade across through there, it's only going to cut off just what's hanging over, and that will give me a taper on it. It also serves as a joiner. If this board is, let's use this one for example. Now this one's already straight, it's already been cut off, but you get the idea because of this live edge. Say for example, this is all out of sorts. This is not straight. I let it hang over what I want. It doesn't matter because this is what's referencing off my table saw fence. It doesn't matter if this is straight or not. If I just want to straighten the side of this board up, I let that hang over, and the same effect as the tapering jig, doing a taper. Whatever, if I set my table saw fence with this one, which is 7 inches, and then I run that through, it's going to cut me off a straight edge on this side, and then I can turn this side, my straight side, against my table saw fence and cut this side, take it out of the jig. I've cut this, I take it out, I turn that to my table saw fence and cut off this side, and I've got two sides that are parallel to each other and completely straight, and it works great for that. You can also, there's a lot of things, and we're not going to be able to cover them all. There's a lot of things you can do with this jig. If you just need to shave a little bit of it off, you can take a flush trim router bit, has a bearing on it, and that bearing will ride against this plywood, and the bit will shave off just like the table saw does. It will shave off anything that overhangs and straighten that side up. It works great. And you can make this, any of these jigs, you can upsize them or downsize them. You can actually, with this jig, you can cut it yours wider to get even bigger pieces on it. I use this one primarily for table legs, but you can cut it any length. If you have a joiner that is too small for the workpiece that you have. You can actually joint your boards, make you one that's 4 foot long or 8 foot long out of a whole strip off of edge of a sheet of plywood, and use that across your table saw and use that just like a joiner. They work great, and as long as you need them, you keep them around the shop. You've got it handy. It's already made. Once you make it, it's good until it gets destroyed somehow or another. But anyway, that concludes my 5 jigs for today. And as always, thanks for watching.